Hey people. Well, I guess considering they've almost about killed as many as what they intended, and plus obviously more in Victoria, because it's all about culling. It's all about getting people totally dependent on the government so that they're easily controlled. When you're on welfare, you can get controlled, okay? When you're on welfare, they can say, well, you can't get paid unless you wear a mask, get tested, and get a vaccine. You won't be allowed to go get your groceries. If you continue to disobey that, then we will just simply cut your payment. Okay? It's all about threats. This is all about threats, testing, testing, testing so that they can lift up the numbers. And if people don't do that, then they can't. There's no justification to locking down the whole fucking world. Over what? Over what? The numbers that are coming back for COVID are nothing in comparison to flu, to tuberculosis, to any other majority fucking amount of diseases that are out there already, okay? Not only that, people, stop and think. If you get a cough, does that mean you've got COVID? Did you never cough before in your life? If you sneeze, does that mean it's COVID? Did you never sneeze before in your life? What, you never had the cold or the flu or a sore throat where you were sick for like a week or 2 weeks or whatever? The world wasn't locked down over the flu or the cold. You got sick, you stayed home, you got the fuck over it, and you went back to work or whatever. But they're pushing this testing, 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 okay? Just like New Zealand, for example, now, okay? If you get put into whatever quarantine or whatever it is and you don't want to get tested, if you refuse, they're literally going to hold you captive. There is no other words. It's captive, it's you're kidnapped, you're a hostage. They're holding you against your will. They're literally forcing you or trying to force you to get tested so that they can add the numbers and make the numbers look higher. I'm sure if you looked somewhere in your constitution, I really don't think that doing that to a whole mass of people is legal. I really don't. That's like me grabbing my neighbour going, fuck you, you bastard, okay? You might have COVID or whatever, so I'm going to hold you hostage. If I want to go get tested, I'll go get tested. If my neighbour doesn't want to get tested, he doesn't have to get tested. You know, I mean, they've done whatever that they can. Oh, listen, I say that, but then I have to rethink it. And like I said, there will be way more deaths in Victoria than what there are at the moment. And I'm not talking from COVID, I'm talking from suicide, um, and other things. I mean, how many death certificates have been filled out where people have already had major problems in their life and their health has already been compromised and they've put it down as COVID, okay? But anyway, it looks like New South Wales is next. The number of new COVID cases in New South Wales each day is likely to be up to 10 times the figure reported by authorities, according to one epidemiologist, as fears about community transmission in the state grow. State after state, people. University of Melbourne epidemiologist Tony Blakely said the presence of cases without a known source was a good signal. Actual case numbers were a lot higher. So if they've got an average of 20 cases per day in the last week, that means that at any one point in time, there's about 200 other cases out there that we don't know about. At this point, let me stop and repeat myself yet again. All of these numbers, people, if you downloaded that app, you are fucking over everybody else. You, because no matter where you fucking travel, your phone is hooking up to the next person's phone, hence your social distancing, okay? It's hooking up to the next person's phone. What you are doing is you are literally putting people into lockdown because of your stupidity in believing people that aren't going to tell you the truth, that are conniving, that are literally killing off elderly people, disabled people, you name it, for their own agenda. You, if you have that app, are screwing over your friends and family. You are putting people's businesses in bankruptcy. You are literally killing off small business. See, the government never does that kind of dirty work. They don't do their own dirty work. They get you to do it, you know? They get you to do it. Dob in a neighbour, yell at people at the supermarkets. Do you know what I mean? They get you to do their dirty work. He said some of those cases would have an identifiable source, but others would be mystery cases. Mystery now, it's all a fucking mystery. It's all a mystery. If you've got a case that pops up and you can't trace it back to its source, and you assume that tracking has been done well, it means it's come from silent transmission. It's incognito. It's incognito. On Thursday, New South Wales reported 12 new cases of COVID-19, including 3 that were acquired locally without a known source. Incognito, I tell you. To date, the state has recorded 380 locally acquired cases where the source has not been identified. Mary Louise McLaws agreed New South Wales has some level of undiagnosed transmission of COVID-19, with at least one undiagnosed case for every diagnosed person. They need excuses, people. They need excuses to lift up those numbers to justify what they have done. They need excuses to justify what they have done to people, to justify the murder, because that's all it is, the murder of the elderly, of the disabled, of misdiagnosis, of fucking wrong treatments. They need justification. I am not sure I would put it as high as 200, but I accept the argument that for every diagnosed person, there is probably at least one other that we don't know about, or possibly 2 or 3, or maybe 5 or 6. Oh, fuck it, let's just throw in whatever number we want. There are probably at least 20 cases that we are not aware of because it takes people a while to realise they are unwell and to get tested. What, because you sneezed? Because you coughed? Because you have a runny nose? Because you have a sore throat? Sounds like the flu to me. Sounds like the flu to me. Different story if you've gotten to the point, people, where you literally and seriously cannot fucking breathe and you're gasping for air, okay? Then you need to go and say, well, okay, there's something not right. But if you're going to run and get tested because you sneezed or you coughed, grow a brain. Because like I said, they are now looking for reasons and excuses to increase those numbers. They have to justify what they've done. They've fucked over the economy. This is worldwide. This is not just in Australia, okay? They have fucked everything over. Now they have to justify why they fucked it over. They're not going to say they fucked it over, okay? They're not going to say that. But they need to increase those numbers. Those numbers need to get higher. Like I said, the suicide rate because of the lockdowns is higher. Do your own research. It's higher than the actual deaths from supposed COVID. Okay? The suicide rate. We're doing well. We're holding our own. But when every week you get a couple of unknown cases and they can't be linked, oh, sad. You want to track and trace? You do worry because what it does tell us is that there is the disease circulating. How do they know it's circulating? If you can't see something, how do you know it's circulating? And then there are other people who are also silent transmitters who are so mildly symptomatic, they don't realise they have it. Well, isn't that like Helicobacter pylori? 80+% of the world, not Australia, but the world has got Helicobacter pylori. I don't see everybody screaming over that. And that's something the doctors don't tell you about. Again, I'm going to repeat myself from before. How many of you have been tested for Helicobacter pylori? How many? How many doctors have told you about that? They won't tell you about that test. Why won't they tell you about that test? Because that keeps Big Pharma going, okay? That test causes bloating, it causes stomach ulcers, which if not treated turns into cancerous, into stomach cancer. I know, because my mother died of that. And it is as contagious as all fuck. But you don't see them locking the world down over that, because Big Pharma makes a lot of money out of that. Both experts noted people who had COVID-19 but were pre-symptomatic would be spreading the virus unknowingly before symptoms hit, contributing to community transmission. Eventually, a chain of transmission that is silent will end up with a case that's symptomatic. Someone is going to get crook enough to present with symptoms and get tested. It means the virus is circulating in the community incognito, of course. New Zealand's elimination versus New South Wales suppression. Victoria has widespread community transmission, but it's starting to see its daily new case count decrease. Well, all the other states now, it seems we've successfully eliminated community transmission of the virus. We didn't do shit, people. Majority of people never fucking wore masks. You know, we didn't do shit. Which goes to tell you something. New South Wales has a suppression strategy, so some new cases are to be expected, but to move to elimination, the state's response would have to be very different. When 4 cases emerged among an Auckland family, see now they're wanting to introduce what New Zealand has done or is doing. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what is going on here. Look at there. Look here. You go hard and you go early. Really? Really? What, by holding people hostage? People have a right not to be tested. People have a right not to accept vaccines. People have that right. You want to go stick something up your ass, it doesn't mean that I have to. You need to hit it that hard to get ahead of the virus and stop transmission and stamp out all cases, including both the ones you've been able to find where they come from and silent mystery cases. Masks critical to stop COVID-19 wildfire. See, it's a wildfire. I mean, look at the wording. It's a wildfire. In New South Wales, over a 2-week period, we are now up to 175 cases, which is high, she said. We do not want that number past 100 in a 2-week period, because then it just takes off like wildfire. People, leave your mobile phones at home. Do not take them with you. Do not be the cause of somebody else losing their job. Do not be the cause of somebody else losing their business. Stop doing what you're doing. We've all sneezed, we've all coughed, we've all had sore throats. It's been going on for years. For years. You're doing this to each other. You're doing this to each other. Like I said, New South Wales, you're next. Watch it go from state to state, people. Watch it go from state to state.